And good evening and welcome back to the Crestwood School District Board of Education's second meeting of the evening. And, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So we will be discussing our 2021-2022 budget hearing. Today's date is June 14th of 2021. And at this time, I will ask Madam Secretary to take roll.
We're at 6:37, right? Okay.
6:37, my apologies for time.
It's okay. Mrs. Berry?
Yes, here.
Ms. Elzayat?
Here.
Ms. Fawaz?
Here.
Mr. Garcia?
Here.
Myself, Ms. Kaminsky?
Here.
Mr. Sabo?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And if I could, Dr. Musalam, the reading for those that would like to speak publicly, is that made just at the end of Penny's presentation, or should it be made now?
It would be. I would recommend at the end, Mr.
Okay.
President, because then that's when they would start calling in.
Okay, thank you.
You're very
All right, so at this time, Board, we are going to go into our session for our budget, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Morgan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to stand up here.
Okay.
So we have our 21-22 budget presentation here together. Our district budget hearing contains multiple funds. We have the general fund. There we go. I just didn't turn up. Sorry. It contains the general fund, the state and federal projects fund, which is the grant fund, the special service funds, which includes food service, child care, and student agencies include the student activity accounts, the debt fund, and the capital projects fund, which is our bond. The budget revenue comes from non-homestead tax collection from municipalities for the general fund, and the non-homestead property tax value is business properties, vacation homes, vacant land, rental property. This does not include the primary home of taxpayers. The tax rate is the general fund non-homestead voted millage. And please, if there's questions as we go along, just let me know. Millage rate remains at 18 mills until June 2034. The state tax, education tax is 6 mills. All taxpayers pay this and is distributed at the state level. So they pay the 6 mills, it goes up to the state, and then that's distributed down to school districts through the state. Homeowners only pay 6 mills for education. Again, the money is sent to Lansing and they redistribute. And it's based off of our per pupil allocation. The greatest portion of the school district revenue is from the state aid foundation and our foundation allowance. The allowance is based on the formula that includes student count, which is 10% of the previous spring and 90% of the current fall. So for 2021-22, it would be the 10% of the spring count from 19, I'm going back in years, into 2021, and then the fall count of 2021. Then that's times by our per pupil allocation. The projected student count that we use for 21-22 is 4,200 students, which is remaining constant. We do not expect a student loss for the fall of 2021.
Excellent.
We are being very conservative on the budgets. That way there's room for growth. As you can see, the state aid membership over the past 20 years, it goes back to 1990, you can see how it grows, and we peaked in 2016-17 and 2017-18, and then we dropped off, and so next year we're projecting to go back up to 4,200 students. Again, those rates are blended counts, so that's why when you see the 4,150 for 2021, it took the prior 2 counts to get to there, although in the spring of 21, our count was actually 4,207 students, FTEs. But because they do the blended rates, that's where they get the blended counts. The foundation allowance for the 21-22 school year that we will be using is $8,396 per pupil. This recognizes, that's supposed to say increase, I apologize, an increase of $150 per student. What I did in order to get that is right now in the House, in the state, and the governor's budget, there's 3 separate budgets that they've not voted on and finalized, so this is a projected number. It was the conservative effort, the conservative estimate of all 3 budgets, for our allocation. So once that budget is finalized at the state level, we will then have an actual number for this as well. Again, you can see that our general fund allocation from 1999 to 2020-21, it ranges from $6,445 in 1999. They increased it, but as you can see in 2013, 2014, there was a dip, and that's when Governor Schneider cut the budgets for the schools. And I believe at that time, the majority of school districts received about a $340 cut across the state. It's taken us several years to get back, and then within the past 2 years, 2 to 3 years is where we actually started growing back to past where we were in 2009 before all of the cuts. So with our new projection, it will now go up $150 above that. So we continue to grow our per pupil allocation. As part of the assumptions that we're doing for the budget, we have the MIPSPERS offset. The MIPSPERS is the school employee retirement system. We have to pay into that for every single employee within the district. However, the state does offset some of those costs. In 21-22, we will receive an offset considered 147C funds. This offsets our overall revenue, our overall expense by 15.09% for 2021, off the 2021 salaries. The revenue flows through the state and is expensed each month, so it goes out every month back to the state on the 20th. The total retirement amount that we have, that we pay for each employee, is 43%. It ranges depending on the plan that they're in, from 36 to 43%. So for the budget purposes, we use 41% on average. So in an explanation of that, over the past several years, our retirement system has changed for Michigan employees. At the beginning in 1994, when I hired in, it was a straight plan. You only had one choice, and that's where you went. Then they were able to choose 2 different plans, and now we're up to about 10 different plans that they can choose from. So figuring the rates is sometimes rather difficult with the state. Our anticipated expenditures are based off the following: teachers receiving a step and salary schedule increase per the contract, all administrators receiving a step and 2% salary increase per contracts, retirement rate of 41%. While we have to post the entire 41%, only 25.91 is true expense because we do receive that offset in revenue from the state. The expenditures we're going to add back from last year, we're going to add back the transportation costs that were reduced due to COVID. We're also going to add back the pool staffing costs that we had taken out of the budget last year due to COVID. We are going to add back any of the unspent supplies that we had taken out and reduced due to COVID. We are going to increase the athletic budget back up to $750,000. We will be adding 1 assistant principal position. We will increase the budget by 1.0 registered nurse, and that's a registered nurse to be our employee, which was currently contracted. We'll increase 1.0 into general fund of the instructional facilitators, and we will increase maintenance 1.0 position as well.
Could I ask a question?
Of course you may.
So in regards to the medical,
Yes.
Which is the nurse,
Yes.
so nurses typically will do in-service training. So do we provide for that through the district, or would they, because they're our employee, how would they seek those changes in medical procedures and policies? And
We will provide the nurse training as well and the opportunities to attend training throughout the state in order to obtain additional information. In order to keep their certification and their license, they do have to do some of their own training as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But we will provide opportunities for all staff, not just the nurse, to keep training.
And then just to piggyback off of that, because we're so close to Garden City Hospital, that might be an opportunity for the district to somehow shake hands with Garden City and see what they could help us with here. Just thinking out loud. Thank you.
Of course. All building budgets were based on the 2021 pupil count, we did increase their per pupil allocations this year. The elementary schools received $120 per student, and the secondary education students or secondary students received $150 per student. As you can see, from July 1 of 2021, our projected fund balance will be $10,081,275. Of that, going into the 21-22 school year, our budgeted revenues are going to be $43,706,941. Our budgeted expenditures will be $45,577,857, which would dip into our fund balance by $1.8 million. Now that $1.8 million has been set aside in this current school year that we did not spend for the renovations of the upcoming school buildings to add space for the district as its growing needs. So we had set that aside in 2021. We did not spend it. The district would like to carry that forward and continue to set that aside next year, thus dipping into the fund balance by the $1.8 million.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So this
Nadia?
is a one-time deal?
This is a one-time deal to upgrade facilities, yes. Then for the ending fund balance of June 30th, 2022, we would be back down to $8,280,359, which is approximately 23% fund balance.
Excellent.
As you can see from this pie chart, the largest expense that we have for the district is off of basic programs, which means general education, elementary education, middle school, and high school education. And that's 52% of overall expenses. You then go into the second largest portion is close, but the added needs, which is special education, compensatory education, and that is almost 10% of our budget, but it's 9.34. Then you also look into operations and maintenance is then the next largest piece at 7.92%. We then go into support services, support services, which is pupil support, which means counseling, social work, psychologists, nurses, is actually 5.26%. Support services for administration, which is principals, secretaries, and that aspect is 5.24% of our overall budget. And the others you can see are relatively minor. We do go down to debt services or facility acquisition construction. That's at 4.48. That includes that 1.8 million that we'll be using on renovations. I think, and again, this slide presentation I'll share with you, and it'll be posted on the website so you all can have this and look into more detail on the budget where we spent the different pie chart pieces. Our fund balance, as you can see, has been relatively up and down for several years. In 2019 and 20, when Dr. Masalam and our administration took over, you can see that our fund balance jumped over $2 million, and we continue to grow the fund balance. Again, at the end of the year, it will be $10 million this year. However, next year we are dropping, but that's in order to do renovations and provide the space we need for our students. The fund balance, and I just wanted to show you this, the fund balance currently of 2021 is $10 million, with the projected budget, the one that we have there in red, with $150 per student additional, drops us down to $8.2 million. Again, that's with the renovations. If we did not do those renovations, our fund balance would be exactly where it was in 2021. And I just wanted to show you those comparisons. So if you chose to tell me not to do the renovations and we didn't want that budget, we could go back, take that 1.8 million out, and we'd be at 10 million. The majority of the funded, I'm going to move on to funded programs. Is there any questions about general fund so far?
Okay.
Excellent, thank you. The majority of the funded programs run from October 1st to September 30th. This is based off because of the fact that it's federal dollars, and that fiscal year runs October 1st through September 30th, so it does not correspond with our fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs July 1 through June 30th. Our final allocations for these programs are not typically given to us until September, even October, because the state's budgets have not been finalized. So what I've typically done in the past and will continue to do is take the 2021, and that's, I know it says both, but to begin the 21-22 budget with the rollover from the prior year's grant budgets, because we will not typically be less, but I don't know all of the amounts finalized yet, and I can make an amendment in November once we know that amount. So the total funded projects budgeted to roll over is $9,905,620. The grant funds include Title I, Title II, Title III, 31A, GSRP, Perkins. It's going to include the ESSER funds, and I think that's the big majority of the pieces. So as you can see with the grant revenue, the state sources are $2,814,595. The federal sources, state sources include, let me apologize, the 31A, and that state sources 31A. There's some minor reading literacy grants and some other minor grants in there, but the large one is 31A. The federal sources includes the Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and the ESSER funds. The transfers include the money that we're moving from general fund to support the GSRP program, because currently the state does not provide enough funding for the GSRP programs, and so therefore a lot of districts have to offset those funds with general fund dollars, and that's part of the transfers and the fund modifications. Our expenditures include $5.5 roughly million in instruction, which is compensatory ed classes or support staff. Those are Title I teachers, which support numeracy and reading. They're also ELL, additional teachers, which support struggling students. And then support services, which in there we have psychologists, and we have professional development for staff, and those are the big things. Community services, building improvements, and transfer outs are indirect costs charged to federal programs. What the federal programs allow is districts to charge and offset costs that are day-to-day operations, such as some of the payroll costs, some of the custodial costs, the lights, the gas, and those things. All federal grants allow us to have a restricted indirect cost rate. Currently, our indirect cost rate is 1.43% of the overall grants. And again, this budget is kept consistent with the 2021 budgets. Any questions on the grant funds? Okay. Special services funds, I again rolled those over. With COVID, it was such a difficult year to judge because we did not have the child care expenses or the food service revenue and expenses, the cafeteria, those things as we have in the past. So budgeting for prior year, we budgeted high and obviously came in lower in both revenue and expenditures. So instead of reducing it, I wanted to keep it and roll it forward and stay consistent. Therefore, we can make an amendment in November if we choose, and we look at things and say, okay, this is much higher than we anticipated, and we can adjust that route. So with childcare and cafeteria, our local sources are $250,000. That includes any of the tuition-based preschool. It includes the catering that is done at the food service level, different items like that. We have state sources, which is partially for food service. It's very minute from food service during the state sources. Most of food service, the majority of it is all federal sources. As you can see, the revenue and expenditures equal. We always aim for a balanced budget, and when we have a fund balance, that's always the icing on the top. You can see with the agency funds in 2000, 1920, the state decided that it was important that the agency funds had their own budget. But they did not enforce that until the 21-22 school year because of COVID. Basically, what the agency funds are the activity accounts. Now, we do not allow our activity accounts to be overspent. We also make the deposits go in first and then expense as the money is available. There is no foreseeable way that those activity accounts will collect over $1 million in a year. That's why it was set at that amount. So if for some reason it didn't need to come back and forth to the board. Capital fund projects, because we haven't paid all the final things, there's a couple things that fund balance is not finished yet, but we will project that the balance to be $2.4 million. And once we have everything as of June 30th, we can revise that in November.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
So, looking at the general funds, you're saying that we're at the 21%?
Yes.
Is that all deducted from that, or?
General fund is separate than all these other funds that I've
Okay.
had. Yes.
So,
All the other funds are zero balance. They're in, out, they wash.
okay,
The revenues equal expenditures, so there is no balance. And it does not cost anything to the general fund unless I've identified it in there, like I did under the grant program. You can see the fund modifications are $90,000. That's the transfers in from general fund to offset the GSRP program. Okay? And you can see as in here, transfer out is the food service program actually transfers out money to the general fund because we are allowed to transfer charge the food service program indirect cost as well.
no.
Mo? I'm sorry, I apologize.
That was my question. Thank you. I was
Okay.
just about to ask her exactly about the transfers out, talk about the expenditure,
Okay.
the line item.
Are we good?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Capital, I went through that one, sorry. So the debt fund includes payments for the 2016 bond. It also includes payments, for the other financing that we do. However, the debt fund with the taxes only has the budget from the tax revenue. So this part has to be separate than typically the other debt portion. The reason is because the 2016 bond was voted in, and therefore we collect funds for that. We collect the tax revenue. On hand as of July 2021 will be the $100,000. Our revenues will be $2,244,000 based on the tax L4029 that you'll be voting on to approve today. The budget expenditures, that $2,506,000, that's our payments for the 2016 debt fund, the bond. So that's the payments for the 2021 school year that we need to make sure that we have covered. Yes, sir.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
that's right. No, Mo, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're talking about the debt funds and we're talking about some of the new expenditures that we're taking on here. Are those going to go into something else or are you going to add those into the debt fund eventually?
Those do not go into the debt fund, the new payments. They do go into the debt fund, but not under this portion of it.
So the debt service coverage is obviously going to change, and I'm trying to figure out how many portions of different funds are you taking to figure that out? And is it going to simplify, or is it guided by the state as to how it can be added?
It's guided by the state on how we can add it, but I can break down the budget in more detail once all of the finalized payments are there. And then what happened in the past is all of the funding and all the payments were grouped to one account number, and that made it very confusing. So I've broken, not bank account, but a structural account number. They were grouped into one lump. Here's an interest payment, here's a principal payment, and here's the dues and fees. But they didn't break it out by the payments for, this is from the 2016 bond, you had to do that, print reports, and do it internally. So I'm building new accounts to add that and break that out.
Did the audit catch that?
No, because it really doesn't need to be.
Well, no, but from a simplification anyway.
Yes, I
I'm
understand.
not going to go there. All right.
We caught it.
You know where I'm going.
I do,
All right.
and it's I want it to be very clear as to which
Thank you.
payments go to which debt payment. Are there any other questions? That's where we're projecting the budget to be and the resolution that we will be asking the board to adopt in the regular board meeting at 7 o'clock.
Mr. President, if I may add to that really quick.
Dr. Musalam?
I want to reemphasize a couple things. First off, that is a typo. It's an increase of $150 per student, not a decrease.
I apologize.
That's okay. We'll have that fixed before we post it. I don't want to freak anybody out, because
I
I
figured-
freaked
I
out for a
would
second.
figure
But secondly, the key here to keep in mind is this is a conservative budget. I wish I had budgeted this way for my personal life. I'd have more money. But it's a conservative budget based on the assumptions from the state and from what we have and looking at historical reference. The key thing here to keep in mind, because this is something that you have to tell the community, and I wish we had community here so they could hear this. That 1.8 million is the money that we as a team saved the last 2 years, unknowing to us that we were going to have infrastructure needs. Now that we have infrastructure needs, because you saw our estimated projection of 4,200 students, which is up 400 and plus students since my tenure as superintendent, that now that's what the fund balance is there for. And being that even when we use that 1.8 million, you need to please help me reiterate to the community, we're still at a 21% fund balance. And let's remember, auditors recommend 16%. We're at 21% even when we use that 1.8 million. So we're in good financial situation here. Additionally, this is why we are watching very closely every penny we spend. Because we have to be financially sound, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And what the public has to understand as well is we are at the whim of the government. If the government comes to us tomorrow and says, we're cutting you $300 a student, we can't go out and find that revenue somewhere else. We have to make cuts. But when you have a strong fund balance, you can use your fund balance to offset some of those and then make some cuts where need be. So I wanted to reemphasize that to the board, to the community, to understand that that's where we are as a district. And this is on top of being a one-to-one district now with Chromebooks. So there is so much that we have done as a district that I'm really proud of our team and of the board with your guidance and your support to get us where we are today.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no questions from the board, if there are any individuals out there that would like to speak to the board or have any questions, and they can direct those to the number that's specified, but as I'm getting from our technology master, there's no one out there. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I would just like to thank the board for the time and opportunity to present the budget.
My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you,
okay.
Penny. No, and you know, I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I'm sure I'll just let them go ahead and speak. Yes, Mo?
Penny, thank you. This is very well done. I know that it takes a lot of effort to do this and to put this together the way you did. I appreciate it. Nice
Thank
job.
you.
Yes, thank you. I think this is a lot easier to read, and as you had mentioned, you came into this budget 2 years ago, and I think Mo referenced it was all clumped up together, so thanks.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Sorry, I got
Support.
We have a motion from Sue,
job,
supported from Danielle, that we adjourn at 7:05. And we will not take a recess. We will go ahead.
Mr. President.
I'm sorry, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the ayes have it. We are adjourned.